Hello, everybody. My name is Joel. I am the Executive Director of FZY. I hope that you can hear us live on YouTube this evening. And if there are any technical problems, then I hope we'll be able to fix them quickly and for everybody. I just want to introduce a few people before we really get going. As I said, my name is Joel. I'm the Executive Director of FZY. I was actually a tour participant myself on the FZY program back in 1997. I was fortunate enough to be a Madrich, a leader on the program in 2003. And for the last 20 years, I've been working for FZY and for our partner programs, both in the UK and in Israel. And I currently live in Israel. I've been here for 15 years. And for the last 8 years, I've been FZY's Executive Director, which oversees all of FZY's programs, including the Israel Tour program that your children will be going on this summer. I want to introduce a couple of other people shortly, and when they first start speaking, they will introduce themselves a little bit more. The other people we've got on the line here tonight, I have Jack Isaacs. Jack is FZY's National Mazkir and is responsible for the Israel Tour program from the London office. We have Lucy Ross, who is the FZY's incoming Mazkira, National Director. And was actually both Lucy and Jack last year were Madrichim on the Israel Tour program for FZY. We have Josh Dubel from UJIA Israel Experience, and we have Aaron from PLURALISM. And what I'm going to do is actually share my screen and get up a slideshow, and so I can actually talk a little bit about the partnerships that FZY has this summer. So I mentioned we have Aaron from PLURALISM and Josh from UJIA Israel Experience. PLURALISM is a partner that FZY works with, and they work on all of the logistics, booking the accommodations, working with the Israeli staff on the program, the food, the activities, etc. They book all of that in the ground, and FZY work very closely with them on that. And then there's UJIA Israel Experience, who work a lot and support the program on things like Madrichim training, on things like financially supporting participants on the program, and many other places. And they will explain a little bit further as we go along in this presentation, and they'll give a little bit more of a detailed explanation of what it is they do. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass over to Jack, who's going to share with us a little bit more about who are FZY.
So, hello everyone, I'm Jack. As Joel said, I'm FZY's Mazkir for this year and also responsible for the Israel Tour program. So who are we? FZY is Britain's oldest and largest Jewish Zionist pluralist youth movement. Over the last decade, we've taken thousands of people to Israel, with this year being our biggest Israel Tour year ever. We are delighted to be taking a record 13 tours this summer. FZY has members across the UK, including London, Manchester, Essex, Leeds, Glasgow and Liverpool, but obviously not limited to just those places. And we offer summer programming for all high school age groups, with camp running up until year 10, obviously Israel Tour for year 11, and a voluntary selective program in Ghana for year 12, and endless leadership opportunities once they finish year 13. What underpins all our programming is our ideology, and that is being a Jewish, Zionist and pluralist youth movement. FZY embraces a religious and political framework for pluralism, which not only represents but actively celebrates diversity as an integral part of the rich tapestry of Jewish peoplehood. We encourage and celebrate argument and disagreement. With this framework, all food on FZY Israel Tour is certified kosher, and Shabbat will be observed in all public places. All activities on Shabbat will be Shabbat friendly, and we don't tell you what to believe and how to pray, and we offer 3 types of Shabbat services on Friday night and Shabbat morning. These services are Orthodox, Reform, and an alternative option. So how we build our program. The points on this slide are key components as to how we build the Israel Tour program. The core educational programming is the same for all 13 groups, reflected in the itineraries we were sent a couple of weeks ago. In terms of self-development, Israel Tour is a space that can see participants explore the kind of Jew or Zionist or person that they want to become. The program explores Jewish peoplehood, and we'll also look at the welfare and communication aspect of Israel Tour later, with Josh from UJIA talking us through safety and security.
Cool, thank you, Jack. I'm now going to pass us over to Aaron, who will go into a little bit more detail about the program itself.
Hi, thanks, Joel. I'm Aaron. I run the incoming tourism department at PLURALISM. PLURALISM is a tour provider in Israel with a focus on youth groups, both schools and youth movements from all over the world. We started working with FZY approximately 2 years ago and during COVID, and ran the program for the first time last year together with FZY with great success. And we're very happy to hear the increased numbers for this summer. We really see the Israel Tour program, and we see Israel as a living canvas for educating the participants about Israel. And so perhaps differently to when they would come to Israel on a holiday with their families, here we're using the country as a ground for education. And all these places that you see here where the groups visited, we and the Madrichim have a seminar next week where we go over these things with them, how to insert education and Israel education into all these places that they visit, so that they're not just going kayaking or sand dune surfing or sailing on the Kinneret, but really we're also implementing Israel education in all those places as well. As part of the FZY tour, the highlight, we could say, which I experienced last year for the first time and was truly blown away. We have the Maccabea, the one day where all the 13 tours come together in the north of Israel for both sports and non-sports related competition. Ended up in the evening with an amazing tekes, which you'll be able to see live streamed as well. Truly an amazing thing, which we do as PLURALISM. We have groups from all over the world, and this is truly a unique thing, which I've never seen with any other group. So this will be a definite highlight for everyone. So you'll see here, you will have received a schedule that looks much like this. This is an example of one of the tour group schedules, the accommodations that they stay in, as well as the different sites and museums, etc., that they visit. There's a good balance between museums, attractions, sites, visits to Jewish sites. You'll see here throughout these 2 weeks that are shown here, the balance through all those things, and that's what we try and achieve throughout the whole 3 weeks of the program.
Cool, thank you, Aaron. Before I pass on to Josh, who's going to talk through some of the pieces related to his UJIA Israel experience, just a couple of housekeeping pieces that maybe I should have mentioned at the beginning. At the end of the presentation that we give this evening, there will be opportunity. We will be answering some questions. I know that some questions have come in advance via email, and we try to incorporate as many of those within the program, within the presentation itself. In addition to that, if you have any questions which happen as we go along, please feel free to. You need to be a subscriber. The way that we have our security levels on our YouTube channel, you do need to be a subscriber to the channel. And 5 minutes after you have become a subscriber, you can write any questions in the chat, and they will be answered. We'll try and answer as many of those as we can at the end of the presentation. A couple of other points just to add on to kind of the things that Jack and Aaron have said before I move pass over to Josh. Number one, like FZY are like truly excited about this summer. This is actually our largest Israel Tour summer of all time. It's also FZY's largest summer in total, with more than 1,000 participants participating in our summer programs this year, of which nearly 550 of them will be on our Israel tours. And as Aaron kind of like spoke about in terms of like we really do kind of explore the country from the north to the south and all over. We'll talk about, and Josh will talk about security in a minute, but I just also want to kind of bring in the piece there, which that I'm sure that which may be covered, partly will be covered in security, but I also want to cover it from an educational perspective as well, in terms of our tour groups and where potentially they do go or don't go. None of our tour groups will be staying at any point, sleeping in any accommodation within the West Bank. Neither will they be visiting any sites within the West Bank at any point. There may be 1 or 2 occasions if the security guidelines say that it is safe to do so, that when traveling from point A to point B, it may cut, some of the roads may cut through safe places which are determined by our security agents through the West Bank. But at no point during the summer at all will our groups be staying or sleeping there. But outside of that, throughout the rest of, throughout Israel, from the north to the south, and all of those places that Aaron kind of like highlighted, we will be visiting. So I just wanted to add those couple of points on, and now I'm going to pass over to Josh to talk us through the next few slides.
Great, thank you so much. So as Joel said, my name is Josh and I'm the head of Israel Journeys at UJIA Israel Experience. And I'm delighted to be here tonight. So thank you so much for inviting me. I just want to say before I start talking about us at UJIA Israel Experience, I want to shout out FZY and say that for the 429 people that are currently on the YouTube, and obviously, you know, more aside from this, you have truly made a fantastic decision, probably one of the best decisions that you'll ever make, choosing FZY. I had the privilege, and over many years I've seen FZY, but last year I got to spend some time with all of the FZY groups, and as Aaron said, during the Maccabea included, and then throughout Israel. And honestly, it was mind-blowing. The amazingness, that's not really a word, but amazingness of FZY and the spirit and the fun and the learning that happens on FZY is truly amazing and really professional as well. It's important to know that those two things happen side by side. So you are rest assured. But as with regards to UJIA Israel Experience, so essentially my job is to send people to Israel on various different programs, both long and short, at UJIA Israel Experience. And we do this to inspire, to educate, and to connect young people to Israel and Judaism. And, you know, we work with FZY and support FZY with the year course program. So if your teen has an amazing experience on Israel Tour, which I know that they will, they'll have an equally amazing experience on year course when they choose to take part in that program as well. A little plug for that program. Yeah, so I'm going to talk you through some various things relating to Israel Tour first. So great. So a little bit about UJIA Israel Experience. So we are organized by the Jewish Agency for Israel and supported by UJIA. And essentially, we are an umbrella for 11 youth movements and organizations. And we provide, like Joel said, just to expand a little bit on it, we have a full Madrichim training process that works to supplement the training that FZY do. And actually, we're going to Israel next week, but I'll go into that in a minute. We also book all of the flights. So all of the stuff around like your flight details, the details about the airport is all part of our relationship with El Al, and we're very proud of that. We also, alongside FZY, support with financial support through our bursary scheme, and we support FZY, although they do a good job without us as well on this, with program planning and educational consultancy. And I think most importantly, we support with communications plans and protocols, specifically in terms of crisis management, when things, you know, need to be communicated if something goes wrong, or and all of that type of stuff. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. But also, FZY mentioned that this is the biggest FZY year. I can say that this is the second biggest Israel Tour year overall since records began. I thought that was only used for weather, but it's also used for Israel Tour numbers. So it's going to be a really, really big year from across all of the youth movements and organizations, and we're really proud of that. And I also want to give a shout out to Tzlalim. So you can kind of see the three spokes of the Israel Tour machine, if you want to call it that. So I talked about FZY. Obviously, I told you about UJIA Israel Experience, but also Tzlalim. Aaron undersells Tzlalim a little bit because they are one of the most professional, if not the most professional tour provider that's out there in Israel. Aaron, you can also quote me on that. And they, you know, historically also run many birthright groups, also for other youth movements within the network. And we did a tendering process a few years ago just to kind of check that all was good, and Tlalim passed with flying colors, and they're very good at organizing stuff. It's important to know. And, you know, as Joel said, these are the things that they are responsible for, and do a fantastic job with it. So I want to give a little shout out to them as well. Just a little bit about our training process. FZY have their process as well. And it's important to know that all of the Israel Tour leaders are really great, first thing. And they've all been through, at least through us, is through a screening process, and a UK seminar, which happened in Hendon a few months ago. And we go to Israel. I actually fly tomorrow, and the seminar starts on Sunday, where we train them in all various pieces in order to be a good Israel Tour leader, tour guiding in Israel, Jewish education, welfare, leadership. And also they get to meet their wonderful Israeli co-Madrichim, which is one of the best parts, so that they can provide the best experience for your team as well. And they really do a good job, and they're fantastic. And just a little bit around the Code of Conduct. So you all will have signed the Code of Conduct as part of the application process. And this outlines kind of all of the various expectations that we have of your teen, or indeed yourself if you are a teen on this call as well. And I want to implore you to read it again together, just to make sure that you are coming into Israel Tour with the right mindset, to say that these things have been, you've looked at them, you've understood them, and you come in to bring your best self into the program. Obviously, you know, there is a support system for you if things aren't going so well, but it's important that you reread the Code of Conduct, because I would imagine that many of you read it when you applied the end of 2022. So maybe give that a little refresher. And I think that would be really important for you to do as you build up to Israel Tour. And I'm going to just read this because I think it's really, really important. It's really, really important that you have disclosed everything as part of the application form system. And additionally, if anything has changed since you filled in the application form, please let FZY know of any changes that happened. And there's a couple of main reasons as to why we do this. Firstly, in terms of it may result in discomfort for your teen or for the leaders and the group. So we organize our training based on the information that we get through the application process. And it could be a world, if something is not disclosed, that has not been trained upon to our leaders. So it's really, really important that all conditions and illnesses are disclosed, and it's so that we can fulfill our duty of care to your team. And additionally, failure to disclose pre-existing conditions may have implications for the medical insurance that's taken out by Tlalim as the insurer. So all participants get approved based on the information that we have. So it's really, really important. And in the application process, in the terms and conditions, it does say that failure to disclose information is grounds for removal from the program. Really important that you know this. Okay, so FZY, as Joel mentioned, there are 500 plus people on FZY Israel Tour. They also have other programs that are happening in the summer. And also, indeed, with us, this is relating to us as well. We also have, 10 other youth movements and organizations that have sets of parents. So I want to implore you, and we'll do the same. We will do exactly the same. We will communicate with you with respect and patience, and I would like to implore you to also do the same. There are professionals working on this program, and there are also volunteers giving up their time to support these programs. So please, if you have a question or query, please do so share this with respect, and also know that we can't always give you quick answers during the summer. As you can imagine, there's a lot happening. So I just wanted to let you know that. And here is just an outline of the structure. I think it's important that you can visualize the support structure that is around your teen, or indeed yourself if you're a participant on the call, to know that this is the structure. You can see the three main spokes at the top level that work together, speak on a day-to-day basis, but there are also people called rakazim and support staff that are on the ground that oversee 2, 3, 4 groups. And then you can see at the bottom, which is the kind of day-to-day that is with all of the groups. It's important that you know this so you can feel safe, rest assured that your team is really, really well supported. Okay, so I'm going to talk about security now. Security is our absolute #1 priority above all, to ensure that all participants are safe and secure, and it happens on a day-to-day basis on a holistic level, and everything is assessed on a day-to-day basis. It could be during times of heightened tension. You know, you may have heard some things have been happening over the last few months. This is included in that. But things that you may not expect to be included in that are things like heat waves, things like trees falling in the middle of a hike, which means you can't do it, or on the middle of a road. Everything is planned in according to the directive of Moked Teva, which is is connected to the IDF and the Israeli police force, is the security service for all school groups are under this, and all tours and trips are under this network. And the way that it works is that every day, even before any group leaves the hotel or hostel, they have to get a green light from the Moked Teva. Everything is looked at, is judged, and they will say, okay, you're good to go, or maybe we may not need to hike in 40-degree weather in this location today because it's unsafe. Please look for an alternative. You cannot do this. And additionally to that, that's also why we say, and you'll see it on your schedules, is that itineraries are subject to change because they can change at any moment, given any of these assessments at the top. And additionally, all of the tours are GPS tracked. We have this thing in our office where you can see a screen and dots that go around. One of the other things is that we can actually also see how fast the bus drivers are driving as well. So everything is known. And the Moked Teva will define to the tours each day, whether based on the itinerary, as to whether a security guard is needed during parts of the program. So we base all of our security decisions based on the directive of the Moked Teva. That's the thing that we do. And if there's one thing as a British person that I trust is Israelis when it comes to security. So we are very confident that we can, from a security perspective, support all of the tour groups and all of the individuals on the ground. Great. So you will receive a daily update from FZY every day, and which is with pictures and you know, stories and educational things that the groups are doing, except for Shabbat. There will be social media uploads. I was following all 12 of them last year on Instagram, and it was fun. Sometimes I had to like mute it because it was just constant. There was just so much stuff going on with FZY all the time. It was great. But most importantly, in terms of communication, is that we have a well-prepared system to communicate with parents at any time during certain situations. So we can set, and also FZY can do all of this as well, but we can send text messages at any moment to let you know the status of a group or of your child's team. We also have a trained call center, both internally at UJIA Israel Experience, that we can put into place at any time. But additionally, also we work closely with the CST as well, the Community Security Trust, that can also join us as part of this call center so that we can communicate with each Israel Tour family at a moment's notice. And we also have a time-stamped website. On our website, you will be on the daily email every day. It will be at the bottom from FZY, which will be a link that you can click on just to see the update of all the groups are safe, or we've been aware of this situation, and you'll be able to see that on a moment's notice. And please allow staff to do their jobs in an emergency, and please limit contact to what is vital and urgent. And we will communicate with you the relevant information in the timeliest manner. Yeah. Great. I'm not going to talk too much about bursaries today, but what I will say is from a UJIA Israel experience side is about the last point on this page, which is since you applied for a bursary and until now you've had a change in circumstance, we understand that, you know, we're living in challenging times and there may have been a change of circumstance. We may potentially, there's no guarantee, but we may potentially be able to assist with financial support at this stage. So please speak to FZY, who will then liaise with us, and we'll see what we can do at this point. We understand that it's a challenging time, and we will do all that we can in those moments. Great. Obviously, just a couple more final points. Obviously, there may be some instances where parents might need to travel to Israel. It could be that something happens and you're required to be in Israel. However, there are limitations on insurance claims relating to this. So please, if this is something that is needed to be done, please have a conversation with FZY about what that means, what is covered under the insurance and what isn't covered under the insurance. Just please speak to them about it, so that we're all kind of on the same page with regards to that. And finally, you will be receiving an evaluation survey about a week prior to tour, which helps us to maintain the qualities of Israel tour, to understand how we can make it better. If you've got any additional kids that are going to go on Israel tour in the future or friends, this survey helps us to make it as meaningful as possible. So you'll also receive one after Israel tour as well. And it's really important that you fill this out with your child or children. And finally, before I stop and be quiet and pass on to somebody that's way more interesting than me, is that I just want to say, I hope that you all have a fantastic summer. Whether you are going to Israel on an Israel tour program or you are getting the benefit of handing your teen over to FZY and you'll get some time to relax, recuperate, go on holiday yourself, but you can be rest assured that they will be in safe hands during the summer, and that we are delighted to have them in Israel this summer. And thank you, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you, Josh. So I want to talk through maybe a few more points, and before we come in closer to answer some of your questions. So how I want to kind of, like, Josh has like covered some parts of this, but I also want to kind of like cover this. Some of it, what Josh spoke about, is like the general for all of the different groups which are going, and I want to be specific on some of the points relating to the FZY participants. So everyone here, either participant or parents. So on our tour, how do we actually care and look after participants? One of the things that we do is we have a curfew on our program. We recognize that most participants are 16 years old, and maybe a few which are still 15. But as you probably have seen from the schedules, that the days are packed. Most days are starting, most days participants are getting up around 7 o'clock. There are some days where they're getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning, maybe even earlier, to do some sunrise hikes and things like that. The days are long. They're normally out and about, apart from Shabbat when they're in the accommodation a little bit more. But for 6 days of the week, pretty much from early morning, most days around something 8:30, something like that, they're already on a bus and out. And they rarely get back to their accommodation until dinner time, sometimes even later. And then sometimes they're even going out from there as well in the evening. Our programming runs pretty much daily, from around 8-ish in the morning through to about 10, 11 o'clock at night. And we feel that in order for participants to be able to get them to maximize their enjoyment and their understanding of what the program is, and we don't want participants to be up all night, and also it's just not healthy for them to be up all night. We don't want them to be up all night and then kind of like be more prone to get dehydration or sunstroke or become ill during the day because they haven't had enough sleep. So we do have a curfew. Most evenings that curfew is around the midnight, maybe a little bit earlier some nights, depending on what the schedule is of the following day. But that's one thing that we do. We have clothing requirements. It's hot in Israel, I'm sure all of you know. especially in the summer. So we require participants to make sure when they're out and about in the day, they need to have their head covered at all times. They need to, whenever they are going on hikes and play times when the tour guides will tell them, the Madrichim tell them, they need to wear closed shoes so they don't get injured. We also, again, when they're out and about during the days, their clothes need to cover their shoulder, cover their midriff. We want to make sure that we're minimizing participants from getting sunstroke, heat exhaustion, all of those types of things. There is a first aid trained staff person who's with the group at all times, who are able to administer first aid. And whenever, if there's ever any points during the program where someone requires to see a doctor, go to a hospital, have a specialist treatment, then we can set all of those things up. Health insurance is provided for all participants. There are, as with any insurance policy, there are obviously limits and certain things that they do include and certain things that they don't. All of like the kind of like the highlights, if we want to call them, of that were in the information guide that has been sent out. If anyone has any specific questions on that, which is relating to their specific medical needs, then I recommend to please email into the FZY office at some point over the next couple of days, so that we can make sure that either so we can give you the answers to whether things are covered on the insurance for you, or whether you will need to be taking out your own policy. From the way that we have been processing the forms, for anyone who we believe need to take out additional cover just to be safe, like we have already, or we will be over the coming days, be informing you of that. At the beginning of the program, all medication needs to be handed into for their Madrichim, to their leaders for safekeeping, to make sure that there's less opportunity for those to be lost, to make sure that they can be handed out to the participants as and when they're needed. So that's something that will happen on day one. And obviously at the end of the program, any medication which is left over will be given back to the participants on the last day as well. In addition to that, we have like a whole welfare support team in Israel. There we have a mental health company, some trainers who are like on a retainer for us if we ever need to use them. And there are lots of people both in Israel and in the UK who we work with, who can support both the participants themselves, the Madrichim, their leaders, and all of the organizations which are here represented here, to make sure that we can support participants in the best way possible. So medical updates. So what happens if during the summer a participant does fall ill, like when do we communicate that with you, and how do we do that? So if it's a non-emergency case, we will be sending that information out to you via email on the same day or on the next day. That will depend on what time of the day that non-emergency case happens. If it happens during the daytime, during office hours, then we will endeavor to make sure we email you that information on that day. If there's a non-emergency medical situation which happens in the evening, then you will be informed of that via email the next day. And hopefully this won't be the case, but if there is an emergency medical situation which arises at any point during the summer, we will notify parents immediately by telephone, and we'll make sure that you are updated throughout that whole process. Josh mentioned about the code of conduct before, and the rules that all the participants are required to adhere to throughout the time on the program. So a couple of comments just to add on that. So the rules are in place. The code of conduct is in place for a reason. Like we have, we don't just make up rules just because we think that will be fun to have. Like they're there for a reason. The same, like I explained before, why we have curfew in place. It's not because, it is because we want our participants to be able to get enough sleep so they will be safe and awake throughout the days to enjoy their program. And it's the same for all of the rules that we have there in place. They're there for safety, security, and the welfare of the participants. And as Josh said, we kind of like ask you as a parent community to try to enforce that with your participants. What happens though if there are misdemeanors which happen throughout the program? Like what are the steps that we take? So we have a discipline, an official discipline ladder. Where there's a three-step process. The first will be a participant, if they break certain rules, they will be given a SHABBAT warning, which is their Madrichim, their immediate leaders who are with them day to day. They will sit them down and explain to them they are on a warning. The second will be a rakaz warning. You may remember from the graph that the chart that Josh showed up before, the rakazim or the makashrim are the people who have a few groups that they are overseeing. So if the first warning was not enough to change behavior, then there will be a rakaz or makasher warning. They will speak to that child to make sure they understand what they did was wrong, and they're coming very close to being removed from the program. And the third step, if we were ever to get there, that participant will be taken to our offices in Israel. They will have to pack up their bags. They'll go to the offices in Israel, at which point they are likely to meet myself or another senior staff person on the program, and they will be sent home from the program. It is important for you to understand that steps can be skipped. There are certain things which are a complete red line for us. I'm not going to go into all of those now, but if any participant is found in possession of or using things like illegal drugs, or is in possession of or using alcohol, these are things which are red lines and would be sent home straight away, even if they haven't had their first or second step of the warning ladder. And there could be some times that we believe that something it doesn't require being sent home, but may require skipping a step. Like wherever possible, we want to be able to give participants a chance to correct their behavior, but there may be times where we believe that for the safety of themselves, for the safety of the group, and for us to be able to conduct a program for the 42 people who are on that bus, that sometimes the sending home does need to happen. When you'll be updated on these things. So if your child receives a first warning, a SHABBAT warning, you'll be notified of that via email, and we'll explain what happened and why we're placing them on that first warning. If they receive a rakaz warning, that second stage, you'll be notified by a telephone call. And finally, if they'll be sent home, obviously you'll be notified at a telephone call straight away as well. Okay, I'm going to pass over now to Jack, who's going to talk a bit more about the regular communication you'll see over the summer.
So I'm going to explain how the FZY office will operate whilst everyone is on Israel tour. So as Josh said before, email updates will go out daily, Sunday to Friday, so not on Shabbat, with daily photo uploads where possible included as well. The means by which the photos are uploaded, we will update you over the coming weeks and forward the appropriate link to you. The mailing lists that you receive the emails from at the moment include the primary and secondary email addresses that we got from the application forms. If there are any email addresses that you would wish to be added to this list, just email the office to let us know, and we will add them to that. The office is open from 8:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. throughout the summer, Monday to Friday. And throughout the hours where the office isn't open, we will have an emergency phone in operation. This phone is only for emergencies, and unless it's an emergency, the line needs to remain free. If the call is not an emergency, the call will be politely terminated by the person operating the phone. Finally, families will liaise primarily with the team of the 7 UK-based office staff over the summer, with the Madrichim of your children not allowed to speak directly to you as the parents. All requests or problems can come through the FZY office. So on the Israel tour, we'll be bringing the Sue Harris Trust to each of the groups, and the participants will have the opportunity to be swabbed and to be added to the database of potential donors for the organisation. FZY think it's important to our values, particularly tzedakah and looking out for others, to include this in our programme. However, we recognise that there could be participants or parents who might not be comfortable to be swabbed or be added to the database. If this is the case, you should have the discussion with your child before Israel tour happens. And we won't be putting anyone under any pressure to swab or not to swab, but we want to provide the platform for this during the summer. And then some additional information based off some questions we've received via email over the last week or so. FZY aren't responsible for the loss or damage of personal property on Israel at all, so be careful with the valuables that are brought to Israel. In terms of water bottles, participants must have at least 3 litres of water on them, sorry, excuse me, when they're out and about during the day. If whichever way this is configured is up to you, so whether that's one big water bottle or a couple of slightly smaller ones, whatever works best for your child. But we recommend them to be carried around in a backpack during the day. And then on spending money, our recommended amount is around 150 to 200 pounds, with some of that in shekels. However, the amount of money that you choose for your child to bring depends on what they want to buy, whether that be gifts for their lovely parents for sending them on Israel tour, or just extra snacks whilst they're in Israel.
Thanks, Jack. I'm just going to carry on with a couple of these last points, and then we're going to open things up to we'll field the questions which have been coming into the chat, which I haven't looked at, but Lucy will send them our way in a second. Mobile phones, mobile phones are allowed in Israel tour. We recognize that, mobile phones are more than are sometimes used for communication, or sometimes used for taking photos and capturing moments of the summer. A couple of things about mobile phones: our actual policy is to, like, when participants can use mobile phones and when they can't is clear within the code of conduct, and they'll be explained by their staff when they're there. And if people start abusing that, then we will need to potentially confiscate phones at certain times, but hopefully that won't happen. If there are a variety of different ways, if you want to keep in contact with participants throughout the summer, there are lots of people, lots of the different UK phone providers have their own deals in terms of, like, Israel numbers or cheap calls to us from Israel. That is one option. There is, within the information guide, we spoke about a different option if you want to rent a Israeli SIM card for the period of time that they're on the period of time they're on Israel tour. That's also an option. We will be sending out. I have a meeting next week with one of the companies that are based within Ben Gurion Airport, who can, like, provide SIM cards. So the hope will be that next week we'll be able to provide you a different option, which will hopefully be easy and will hopefully be a good deal as well, if that's the route that you want to go down. But there are several different routes that you can choose: your own, your current phone supplier in the UK, or choosing one of these SIM options in Israel. The other important thing to say about mobile phones, and which links into insurance as well, that if a mobile phone was to be lost throughout, or lost or stolen at any point throughout the summer, most insurance policies require that to be reported within a 24-hour period in order for them to potentially pay out on that. Obviously, on the Israel Tour program, we will, wherever possible, we will try and adhere and try to be able to report any lost phones to get a police report and take participants to a police station. That is not always possible, and it's not always simple to do, depending on where in the country they are at that given time. So it is important for you to recognize that. We can't make any guarantees, and that we'll be able to get the required police report that is needed in order to receive insurance payout on that. So that you should be thinking about that when determining whether phones are being brought in the summer, or what phone is being brought, etc. We have a travel insurance policy in place for the summer. Again, some of the details within that was in the information guide that you were sent out. If there is a need at any point that you, either personally or we as a group in FZY, need to claim on that, we'll be in contact with you about how to do so. But there is travel insurance which is taken out, and for more specific details on certain limits or what's covered, you can look for that in the information guide. And if there's something there specific that isn't there, then feel free to reach out to the FZY office, and we will happily try and answer those questions for you. In terms of laundry and how my clothes that need to be brought, and within that information guide which has been sent out, there is a kit list. There will be an opportunity for each tour to go through a laundry service at one point throughout the program. We will try as best as possible for that to be around the middle of the program, but it needs to be in a place which is where the groups will be staying for a couple of nights, so that the laundry can be taken from them, washed and returned to them. And the places that we normally work with are in the center of the country for those types of things. So it's not, we can't guarantee that the participants will get their laundry washed at the exact time they want, but that is a service that we provide. There is a small cost to that. But if participants want to use that, we also recommend that participants want to bring some travel wash with them, so they can wash a couple of small things in the sinks in their rooms. That's also fine. Flights and deviations. We've gone past the deadline. We did that about a month or so ago. We've gone past the deadline for any flights to be amended now with Allow. And the way that the contracts are with Allow and the group bookings that we have, we only have until a certain point to deviate flights away from the group booking. So that deadline has passed. If there's a reason why anyone at this point needs to deviate their flight, I recommend you're in contact with the FZY office, but that will need to be effectively booking a new flight at your own expense. And that's how that will work. Okay, so I think we're now on to the point of the evening of questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to bring Lucy in. I think Lucy's been following the chat. Lucy, are there questions things that we haven't covered?
Yes, there are a few questions. I think a few of them in the chat have already been covered, so I will just ask the ones that I think haven't been covered. So the first question is, what's the policy on vaping?
Okay, I can take that. The policy on vaping is it's not allowed. Smoking, vaping, any products like nargilas or anything like that, which involve similar types of things, are not allowed on Israel Tour. So we ask that no participants bring a vape or anything similar with them to Israel. If they are caught with that, they will be confiscated from them, and there will be the disciplinary procedure that we spoke about will also be followed through. So this is not the time for doing. Our program doesn't allow for that, so please don't bring.
The next question is, will they be visiting any markets? I didn't see any on the itinerary. Maybe that's for Aaron, Joel.
Yes, so every group visits the Machane Yehuda market in Jerusalem, and then additionally, some groups will visit, not every group will visit the Carmel market in Tel Aviv, the market in Akko. Those are the primary ones, but everyone will visit the Machane Yehuda market.
The next question, can you please specify where they'll be visiting in the West Bank, if anywhere at all?
So, I mean, I can say that I think I mentioned this in the thing. They won't be visiting anywhere in the West Bank. As mentioned, they won't be sleeping in the West Bank. There are no sites in the West Bank they're going to. The only time that participants may enter the West Bank will be on a bus journey from one place to another place. If the security, if the Cheder Matzav, if the Moked Teva, which Josh spoke about, the security, if they deem that it's safe to do so, and if logistically for many different reasons it makes sense to travel on that route. But they, in terms of sites, in terms of accommodation, in terms of things like that, they will not be going to the West Bank.
So the next question, there was a few, and it was kind of about the spending money. So do they bring the money in pounds and get it changed to shekels when they're there, or can they bring it on card only, or does it need to be cash only? Do they get shekels before they go? So just I think a bit more information on the spending money.
Jack, you were a Madrich last year. Do you want to share what most of the participants in your group did?
Sure. So most of them brought it pre-uploaded to a card, whether that was a bank card that they already had, or in the information guide, we provided some options where you can open not necessarily bank accounts, but cards where you can upload money in. I think you can upload in pounds and they can spend in shekels, and the card will do the exchange rate for you. Some participants last year bought a mix, so they bought some cash, so when they're out and about they had a few shekels on them don't know, to pop in and get a snack from somewhere, or they have the card as well. So it's a real mix. It's what you can choose to do.
Just to add on that, within the information guide that we sent out, there were a few different options that are of these kind of like prepaid cards or these different companies that you can work with. So we're not specifically recommending any of them. We don't, we're not on commission with any of them. We don't work with any of them, but it may be useful if you're unsure of the best route to go. Look through there, look and see what some of the options are, and to do your own research on that.
So the next question is, do you have any contingency plans, re the strikes announced at Heathrow, as they impact the return flights for some groups?
I can say that if you want me to. Great. So we have a really robust relationship with El Al, and if for whatever reason something relating to Heathrow happens and it affects one of our flights, we also can work around that, looking at Luton, looking at other places and looking at other solutions. And El Al are really good with us about communicating with us, but also giving us contingency plans and working with them. We work directly with El Al on that, and it's already been brought up to El Al. And yeah, so we can make anything happen with regards to flights. So we will do everything we can. Obviously, it's a moving process with regards to the talks and all of that stuff. So yeah, we have plans in place, and our relationship with El Al really does safeguard that.
So the next question is, do they need a proper sleeping bag, or will a duvet cover suffice?
They don't need either a sleeping bag or a duvet cover. Both are provided in the relevant places.
The next question is, how does the meetup with family members who live in Israel work?
So within the schedules, and I want to add on if anything extra after, but within the schedules, there's a time and a place where family visits we've built into the schedule, because we know that some participants have Israeli family, or some participants have you as their UK family coming out to Israel. That's the time where you can visit them, or their family can visit them. With the rest of the group, like whenever the rest of the group, everyone will have free time in a designated area during that evening. The participants and you or whoever is visiting them will be told, and the boundaries of that area will be told at what time to return back to the group. And then within that boundaried area, you will have, or whoever visits them will have that period of time to be able to visit and to speak and to meet and to find everything else about. But it will be within an allocated area and within that allotted time. One thing to mention, and Aaron, if you have anything I haven't said to add on, like we will not be making decisions as to who they can and can't go and visit. So if there is a specific person who you think may turn up to try and visit your participant, and you would not like them to, then please make sure you have those conversations with your child. We will trust that if someone turns up to see your child and your child wants to go with them, that is, they know each other, and that is, an acceptable relationship and someone who they can go away with. Did I miss anything there, one?
The only thing I would add is that we endeavour to do the family visiting times at shopping centres or places where, if participants don't have family or friends coming to visit them, then they'll still have something to do, and they won't just be waiting around.
So a lot of comments have just come through about needing a sleeping bag, as it says it's compulsory on the kit list. So just to confirm with you, Aaron, that's changed, that they don't need to bring one, but if they would like.
Yeah, that is at the Maccabiah last year, it was sleeping over outside, and for that they required a sleeping bag. This year we will not be sleeping outside after the Maccabiah, and we will be returning to the accommodations, and therefore a sleeping bag is no longer required. If participants prefer to use their own sleeping bag at, for example, at the night outside under the stars, or at the Bedouin tent, rather than using the sleeping bag that is provided for them, then they are more than welcome to still bring one, but it's not required anymore now that as of this year, as compared to last year.
And that's a new change to the schedule, which I think has happened maybe since that information guide went out. We'll make sure that will be corrected for next year. But thanks for clarifying on.
Next question, will the Madrichim be with them during free time?
Yes and no. Like within, like there are, we set for any free time, whether that's free time when they're in a hostel, whether that's free time if they're out and about in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or wherever it is, we may give them a small element of free time, or in Machane Yehuda, the market, like Aaron mentioned before, they will be given boundaries. The Madrichim will be inside those boundaries at all time. There will be a meeting point which will be clearly designated to the participants, where a staff person will be waiting at all times in case there's any problems. And there will be contact numbers and ways to reach out to the staff if there's a problem as well. But like at the time when there is free time in a market or in a city center or whatever, and those times within those boundaries, there will not necessarily be a madrich going with them at every moment in time, but they will be easily contactable and they'll be easily found. We do say though that participants can't just go out on their own that time. They have to be in the groups of minimum of 3 people, because we don't want people just to go on their own, get lost, get into any trouble. So that's the framework of how we work in terms of free time.
Do they need hiking boots, or will trainers suffice for the hikes and for the rest of the tour?
There's no requirement for hiking boots anywhere. Sometimes they do hike, so hiking boots might be more comfortable for them, but the requirement is for closed shoes at hikes, so trainers would suffice for that as well.
Just looking through the questions, seeing what we haven't answered. What is the normal dress code for Shabbat?
Jack, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So on Shabbat and FZY, we try and create what we call the Shabbat atmosphere. We try and make Shabbat special, different to every other day of the week. So that means that participants wear nicer clothes, as in not like the shorts, t-shirts, whatever they're wearing during the day. On normal day-to-day, on Shabbat, they dress in nice and smart clothes, modest clothing to bring in the Shabbat atmosphere as a group. Also allows for great photos just before Shabbat comes in as well. So that is the dress code on Shabbat.
Just one point just to add on that, like I would recommend that for boys to bring a kippah, a head covering, because they're not necessarily just for Shabbat, but also in other places we may visit, like religious sites like the Kotel, the West Mall, other places for that, and for females to bring like skirts or long dresses or things like that, which will be suitable, which may be suitable for Shabbat if that's what they want to wear for that, but also will be suitable for some of the religious sites that we'll be visiting at times. Lucy, maybe there's time for like 1 or 2 more questions if there are any before we wrap up the evening.
Yeah, I don't think there are any other new questions. A few questions on the itinerary, which I believe each group's itinerary has been sent out. So if there are any specific questions on the itinerary, specific to each group, rather than a general question, I don't think there are any.
Okay.
We haven't answered.
Okay, fantastic. Well, hopefully that's a good sign. Hopefully we've been able to cover all of the information that people wanted to hear this evening. What I would say is, like, if there are more questions at other points as we go along the process, there's about another 4 weeks, maybe slightly less, until like the groups start leaving. So if there are any questions, like our office is there, is open. We're there and happy to answer your questions at any point. You have our email address, you have our phone number. Please do get in contact, and we'll aim to respond as quickly as we can and thoroughly as we can. I guess the last 2 things is, firstly, is a thank you to Jack, to Lucy, to Josh, to Aaron for both being on the call this evening and for all of the work that they've been putting in to make sure that this summer will be a truly fantastic summer for everyone. And the second and final thank you and thing I want to say here is a huge thank you to you for putting the trust in FZY, for taking your children through to Israel, to showing them some incredible, amazing history, geography, culture, people over this summer. I, for one, I'm lucky enough. I live in Israel. I'm based in Israel. I'm excited for the groups to arrive, to get to meet your children over the next month or so. And I look forward to our future correspondence and communication over the rest of the summer. So thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for trusting us. And at this point, we are going to close the live stream.